broadcasting live from unknown remote locations and not their parents' basements. It's B2B Tonight with Ryan O'Hara and John Mazza. And now, everybody welcome our host, Ryan O'Hara.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to B2B Tonight's greatest clips. Clips. Yeah, I wish you weren't that delayed when you did it, but that was still really cool. Today, we're going to go through our favorite clips of B2B Tonight from the year 2021. Mazza, how did we pick these clips? What happened?
Wow. You said, Mazza, think of something to do for the last episode of Season 2 B2B Tonight. And I was just like, what could be better than going back, rewatching every single episode, and taking in all the knowledge that I was able to learn throughout the year, and then put it together as like a greatest hits of 2021 clips, like all the best tips that I could possibly find from each and every one of the guests that we had on, and put them all together and turn it into a show.
Well, I think the best way to get started, I just want to let people know that this is brought to you by LeadIQ, and you can go to LeadIQ.com right now, click the Get Started button, and get a free account. And it allows you to do 15 captures a week. You can send in one click a person from LinkedIn into a sequence or cadence and outreach or sales loft. It's magical. It's like
magical.
It's like, you know, doing the cool nose, got your nose thing. The thumb trick.
The thumb trick.
That's what I was.
That's my favorite.
Yeah. So if you want to do the thumb trick of sales, if you're doing the thumb trick of sales, now's the time. All right. We're going to get into our clips here. We've got a lot of people and a lot of cool clips we want to show you, and some things that we cherry picked that we think are interesting. We try to do a progression. So to start with, we're going to play a clip from our friend Dale Dupree from last year. And this is about getting a start in sales. Any commentary to pepper in, Mazza?
Yeah, Dale and Nikki Ivey were on this show. I remember the day because I was really excited about it, and we had a blast. It was definitely one of the more fun shows that we had of the year, and being able to learn from Nikki and Dale was awesome too.
Let's play the clip.
Let's do it.
So let me ask you something. What are some mistakes you see reps coming in? Let's say I'm a noob and I come in. Actually, let's make Mazza the noob. Mazza comes in. He's like, Papa, teach me how to do sales. And they work with you. What do you do? Like, where do you start?
Especially when you have a manager like Ryan who does mock calls like he just did.
Oh my gosh, I equipped you. I'm setting you up for the real world, dude.
You know what's really fun about the mock calls that Ryan just did, though, is that any of my reps from the past life that are watching that I was a VP over are probably laughing, going, "Why is Ryan Dale?" Like literally, because I literally used to go I would get up out of my chair in the middle of a mock call with somebody and like slam the door and they'd be like, "What are you doing?" And I'd stay in character the whole time and take them down rabbit holes, because I would say this, that what we do in sales training is that we typically build this like fairy tale land of where sales lives. And we say like, hey, this is what sales is. All you got to do is say these things and set appointments and close the deal, or hand it off to your AE to do that for you. And really, that's not the case. The case is that as humans, we're on this earth not to sit around from 8 to 5 and work. That's not our calling. That's not what we're meant to do. And because of that, there's purpose-driven, influence inside of the sales rebellion. And what we're teaching people is to, from a sales perspective, is to tap into what drives others as well too. And so even in the rebellion, when it comes to like our curriculum and things we teach, we're not sitting here like rigidly saying these are the steps you have to take or you're doomed and you'll never make a sale. We tap into and meet people where they are and then help them to see some very proven methods that really don't come from a sales background. They just work in sales around communication, around emotions, around the ideology of what experiences provide for people, more so than a pitch or negotiations or anything along those lines. So we just transcend this box that sales trainers and gurus have created over the last several decades, and we're trying to get rid of it entirely and stomp that thing into the ground.
Mazza, he said, don't go down a rabbit hole. I believe it was TLC that once said, don't go chasing rabbit holes.
Yeah, or waterfalls, kind of the same concept, I think.
I don't think I would misquote that song. So I don't know what you're talking about. But
I'm a huge TLC fan.
I think it was don't go chasing rabbit holes. But the point that I like that Dale does there is he's talking a lot about like when you're getting your start in sales, you just got to be your authentic self and be yourself. And we picked that clip first because I think it progresses really nicely into our next clip, which is about setting goals and purpose in sales. I mean, what's the point of doing all this stuff if you're not going to work? This was with Gabrielle Blackwell. Let's jump in and see what she said. How do you guys set goals? Like, let's go from the manager perspective. How do you figure out what those goals are? Because I think we all wake up in the morning and cry in the shower and have no idea what their purpose is. So I kind of want to dig into that a little bit.
I'm triggered because I remember when I first started in sales, that's exactly the experience that I had where I'd get in the shower, start crying, and then I'd get ready for work and I'd go in. There's a lot going on in my world. That being said, though, when I was first getting into sales and what actually led me into sales, it wasn't necessarily, I guess it was a goal, but I was interviewing for a bunch of different roles that were not sales roles, and I wasn't really getting anywhere in the interview process. And so I took a step back and I'm like, all right, I really need to figure out what is going to be the thing that's going to drive me. Like, what is this thing that I'm working towards? And so for me, it was like, all right, I really want to have exposure to all parts of the business, right? And like what kind of roles are like that? And I thought about a CEO role. And then I started doing some research on, okay, where do CEOs start their careers often? And so sales was one of the ones that popped up for me that I felt like I could do this, right? So for me, there was this kind of bigger aspiration of, all right, there's a leader that I want to become, there's a specific kind of function with the business that I want to step into. And so that's like the first piece that drives me. And I think there's a second part of I've gone from being an ICE or an SDR to an AE, right? I did really well as an SDR role. I got thrown into an AE position and struggled really, really hard. And one of the things that I recognized was I don't want to just be promoted and I don't want to have a title just for the sake of having a title. I want to be really, really good at what I'm doing. And I also want to be prepared to be really, really good at what I'm about to get done. So when I think about what that means for me on a goal basis, I've always thought about like mapping out my career from where I'm at to where I want to go. So I want to be a CEO. What are all the different steps that I have to take? Cool. Now, what's the next logical step in my career? And then what is a gap from where I am to where I need to be, right? And I can map that out in skills and competencies. And so I can basically like just look at it of like, all right, hey, I'm just going to kind of check one thing off, right? And I have a measurement system. I also have coaches, multiple, right? I have my manager that I report into, but I also have coaches off to the side who are helping me ensure that, number one, like these goals are realistic, right? They're that I know specifically what the skills are that I need to master and accomplish. Like, what are the ways in which I can start to develop some level of competency and mastery in the specific skills in the role that I'm about to get into, right? And essentially, what's my progress against that? So that's kind of been my formulation of setting up, all right, hey, here's my Northern Star, here's a ladder, career ladder to get there. And then at each point, each rung of that ladder, I know exactly what I need to work on.
So reason we showed these two clips together is Dale talks a lot about setting up real life situations when you're doing training and stuff. And you were talking about that, Mazza, with me before we picked this clip. A lot of what GB's talking about is setting goals and kind of putting those two things together. If you're going to try and get better at selling or have good career goals and stuff, you need to practice real world scenarios so that you're better in those situations. We actually just did a mock call yesterday, Mazza, where like I went out in the snow, I went out when it was 5 degrees outside, and you made me like basically we practiced mock calling, and every time I goofed up, I had to take an article of clothing off. It was very, very cold. So yeah, we looks like we're having some audio issues with Mazza for some reason. I'm not sure why that's happening, but maybe he's muted. You want to try again?
Yeah, we were talking about yesterday all the issues that when you're setting up your mock calls, they're usually like really boring, and you're only talking about like the basic scenarios or the basic objections that you get every day. But that isn't always the case. Something unexpected could happen, and you got to be able to think on your feet. Whether it's an environment issue like that the prospect is going through, like you might not necessarily know that's going to be coming up. So you got to throw in like real life situations so you're able to think on your feet a lot quicker. And a lot of teams aren't doing that. So I thought that was cool to add that with Dale. And then with Gabrielle, I kind of think about like my career trajectory and like where I wanted to be when I grew up and when I originally started as an SDR. I always wanted to be in a marketing role, you know, and being able to put myself like set up goals and do different things with the marketing team in order to set myself up to be in the position that I am today. You know, it's all things that you have to work through beforehand.
I always wanted to be in a marketing role too. And I remember I kind of looked at it and said, well, I'll just do marketing for one account at a time and that'll get me into this marketing role eventually. And that's sort of how I approached it. So as you're figuring out stuff this year, you should try and figure out, what are your goals? What do you want to do? A lot of the best CEOs in the world started in sales. You know how to present, you know how to convince people of an idea, hire people, you sell them, you close them. That whole full cycle can be a skill that can help you. It's like a weird freak mutant power. And that's a really good point there, Maza. So if you have your purpose, you've got mock call practicing, you've done some stuff where you're doing realistic scenarios and prepping, you're probably ready to start reaching out to some companies. This next clip, we had Shikha, Bindra, and Sarah Brazier on, and we talked to them about reaching out to people based on company size and the different ways to approach it. Let's play the clip.
You have a lot of different reps, a lot of different areas that you're reaching out to, but like how different are the conversations your reps are having with those small to medium sized businesses compared to those Fortune 500 companies? Like, do you start them differently? Do you have completely different pitches? Are you reaching out to the same people?
That's a great question. I think there is a very different approach based on the size of the organization. When you're reaching out to small and medium-sized businesses, you can go to the top. They're not large enough organizations where there's levels and levels of people that you need to navigate through or that need to necessarily be involved in a decision-making process. So you can go to the C-levels, the VPs and directors and get to your yeses and nos fairly quickly. But when we're going to an enterprise level business, these are, $2 billion in revenue plus, we want to have more ammo under our belt. So the coaching that we give to our team is reach out to the managers, reach out to the directors, use those to gather information. They're not going to be the ones you set up for next steps with your AEs, but those are the people that are going to give you insight and information to help you get that meeting with that VP or that C-level to then bring to your account executive. And those are the conversations our account executives want. They want those large org-wide conversations. But when we actually get them, there's a lot of work that went on behind the scenes to get to that point. We need to understand what's going on. What are the challenges? What are the pain points that the actual people affected by this challenge is? And how do we use that to actually go and tackle those conversations then head on with the VPs and C-levels?
One of the things that I did, because I was an enterprise SDR for the majority of my time when I was sitting in the SDR seat at Gong, and I read quarterly earnings reports. And I would go, and my outreach was, if I wrote an email, which nobody's answering emails right now. So yeah, cold call is the way. But be like, your CEO's words, not mine. That's the email that I'm sending out. But I literally would call people up and I'd be like, hey, yeah, I listened to your latest quarterly earnings report. Your CEO said blah, blah, blah is a priority. Considering the fact that you do X, Y, and Z according to your LinkedIn profile, I thought it might make sense to reach out about what we do here at Gong. But I'll pause there. Like, have you ever heard of us before? And like that would always start a really great conversation. And then from there, I would get their take on whatever the initiative that the CEO or CFO talked about in the quarterly earnings report, and I'd add it to my ammo list. And I'd have a shared Excel spreadsheet with my account executive where it's just constantly dropping in all of these tidbits around why it's a great time for them to evaluate or buy or why it isn't. But I definitely called lower level people, but if you want to get to the VP or director faster, the hack is to go into the quarterly earnings report or their 10K, because then you've got the business initiative right there. It's right in front of you, especially if you sell to sales leaders like I do. Like, revenue is the way that publicly traded companies continue to exist. So they're going to talk about it the whole time in those calls. And then also looking at like the investor relations questions, like anytime an investor has a question at the end of those calls, man, that was like the juiciest, because they're always calling out like the hole in the plan that the CEO just described. And they're like, how are you going to handle this issue? Ooh, that was like juicy. I just grabbed that and then boom, that's my next email. That's my next cold call.
I love that. That's so smart.
So when I see this clip, one of the things that I always think about Maz actually is so when you sell to the top, right? You're selling to someone that's an executive at a company and they're doing stuff. Yeah, they care about growth. And Sarah makes that great point. Everyone's just caring about growth. These publicly traded companies, their job is to get their stock price as high as possible.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I was thinking about is like when you set at the top, you need to have a holy shit idea. And that holy shit idea will be like lighting a forest fire. Like it's like lighting a Christmas tree in your fire, throwing a Christmas tree in your fire. If you have a big idea, the things that you're selling, sometimes they're a minor thing, or you might spin it to be a major thing, but like it's symbolic of a bigger problem. I'll give you an example. With Shikha, she works at DocuSign. They make it so you can digitize and sign contracts and do all this document stuff that involves 2 parties signing, 3 parties signing, and all that. It's a major problem, but what it actually does is it's actually more symbolic of companies moving to a modern era where they're putting stuff online. That's kind of the idea here. You need to sell a bigger picture idea when you're selling to executives, and that top-down approach is uncovering and telling them about pain that people beneath them are having, but talking about what it says because of that pain. Like, do you care about your employees? Well, if you do, this thing might help you if you're selling productivity. This thing might help you if you care about growth. You're going to change lives and have a bigger impact. That's sort of how I think about it. What do you think about what's selling to the top?
Yeah, I mean, you can't sell into the top. You can't call into the top without being incredibly prepared. So whether it's getting those, those reports that Sarah was talking about, if you're selling into the enterprise on a publicly traded company, or if you're, just trying to book a meeting with them, you gotta find out all those things. You have to talk to their team members, the people that are on the front lines going through it every day. And the more you learn, the more ammo you have to bring to the table, the better you're going to give yourself, the more chances like you're going to have of actually getting that meeting.
Yeah, I love that. And if you have things that you want to personalize when selling to an executive, break them up into more than one touch. Don't dump them all in one email or one call, because it's going to be overwhelming and you're blowing your chance. It's going to take a lot of touches to get their attention.
Yeah, you can't just send out like templates or blasts, or if you're reaching out to the higher levels, it has to be super personalized. It has to be specifically for them, and they need to see that it was written specifically for them.
All right, this next clip is on the science of prospecting from author of Cerebral Selling, David Priemer. Let's see what he says. What's science telling us about sales and prospecting in 2022?
I think the big theme is authenticity. And when you think about what's happened over the last year or two in the pandemic, like people have there's so many things they have to worry about. They're switching jobs, they're losing their jobs, their business, everything is just going, in all different directions. And so the question becomes, like, if you were the customer, this is what I talk about, sell the way you buy. If you were the customer, like, what would it take for a seller to attract your attention? And so when I think about outreach and prospecting, I think about authenticity. And a lot of that comes from just doing a little bit of work, a little bit of homework, a little bit of extra personalization. Doesn't have to take a lot of time to show your prospect that you're human, that you care about them, that you put in a little bit of effort. Because the thing with prospecting, and I think this is a thing a lot of people kind of misunderstand, it's not about selling the deal, right? Prospecting is about getting someone to respond to you, even if it's to tell you no. And so if you want people to respond to, like, I don't respond to machines. I don't respond to people that do like the connect and pitch on LinkedIn. But someone who's done a little bit of research, right? They've shown some they drive some reciprocity. They drive a little bit of interest. I will at least get back to them to say, hey, no, thank you. And in most cases, it's all right. Let me hear what you have to say. But I think authenticity, a little bit of not even just personalization, but just a little bit of effort, is going to go a long way in 2022.
Yeah, I think the authentic part kind of fits a lot of the theme that we're talking about here, and it's a great clip. Maza, we if anyone's not seeing this over and over again, we're telling you, if you want to differentiate and win in prospecting this year, you need to be you. Let's do the double point. Exactly. You ready? You. I thought that was gonna be a lot cooler.
Yeah, it was terrible. I was looking at the wrong screen, but you're totally right. I mean, like if you're not putting yourself into your outreach, then you're going to get lost in somebody's inbox. You're going to get forgotten about. It's all about being more authentic and listening to what your potential buyers want. Doing as they say.
Throughout the year of 2021, we had a ton of clips and cool things that we did wrapped around cold calling, and we're going to kind of jump into some of those clips and dive into them a little bit more. You already heard Sarah earlier say, like, hey, cold calling is the way to go right now. Mm-hmm. This first clip is about getting better odds on a cold call, and this was with Jason Bay.
I really think of cold calling as a game of odds. And like, if you look at the data from Gong, the odds of a successful cold call is 1.5%. I don't really like those odds. I don't know about you. What I think about is, and with anything with outbound, is how can I increase my chances of having a positive conversation with this person? And almost all of the data that Gong has and any other conversational intelligence tool will show you is that the sooner you start talking about yourself, the less likely you are to secure a next step, whether that's a cold call or a discovery call, a demo call, whatever it might be. So the cold call, the way that I suggest structuring it so that you can go from a 1.5% chance of success to, I've seen as high as 33%. And that's, to me, top 1%er status. If you, 1 out of every 3 cold calls can get a qualified meeting from that and a good discovery call, that's top 1%er stuff. Most sales teams are hovering between 3 and 5% usually. So the way that you want to structure it is good old fashioned permission-based opener. Hey, Ryan, Jason with Blissful Prospecting. Look, I know I probably caught you in the middle of something, but you get 30 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling, and you can let me know if you want to keep chatting. That right there, 9 out of 10 times should get you to the next point of the call. So just Sandler style, whatever you want to call it, upfront contract, permission-based opener, really big fan of that. Tonality is really big when you do that, of course. And then here's where most reps make a mistake, is they do an elevator pitch at that point. Well, hey, David, I'm really glad you took the call. And at LeadIQ, you know what we can do is we can get your reps tons of leads quicker. They're not going to have to do all the manual tasks. And I really just wanted to set up a demo with you to show you a little bit more about the product. What's your calendar? You know, it's like that's the mode that most people go into. Yeah. What I want to do is the exact opposite of that. I want to do what I call a priority drop. So a priority drop is people that I talk to like you tell me that they're working on stuff like this. And that language is super dialed in. It's super dialed in because every discovery call that I listen to, I just listen to recordings. These are the people, this is what they complain about. This is the thing they tell you that they're working on. And usually what the prospect will say is, well, yeah, duh, I'm working on both of those things. Or, you know, we're having a heck of a time with that labor shortage. And then I'm going to ask questions around what they're doing. I'm going to ask open-ended questions around, well, hey, I noticed that you guys had, you know, job postings and looks like you have about 6 positions open right now. I'm hearing that it's taken about 3 to 6 months to fill those positions. How long has it taken you guys to get people in right now? Or what are you doing to get people in faster? Or what are you doing to make sure that the people that you hire stick around? And then I can have a whole conversation for 3, 4, or 5 minutes after that around problems that they have. I'm not going to start with the problem. I'm going to start with what they want to accomplish and then the problem. And then I'm going to get the person to ask me what I do.
This kind of reminds me of a lesson I heard once at an AISP executive retreat. I believe the person we talked to, his name is Guyton was his last name. I don't want to say the wrong name. I want to say Gary Guyton, but I don't know if that was his first name. And I don't want to mess up. What he said, though, is he said you got to ask powerful questions. If you ask powerful questions, you get powerful answers. And I thought it was a really cool lesson. And Jason did that in that clip, talking about increasing odds on stuff. Anything to add, Mazza? It looks like you're having audio issues, Mazza. You're muted.
So this one was probably my favorite clip. You were asking me earlier which one was my favorite clip. This is kind of like where I think that 2022 needs to be and where it's going to be when it comes to cold calling. You can't just go straight into your pitch anymore. Everybody's asking for the opener, you know, asking for more time. You go into your opener and then they go into the elevator pitch. I had that aha moment when Jason actually was talking about that. And I'm like, holy shit, that was basically my entire sales career. And, you know, it's and things are switching, things are changing. Like you need to ask those important questions earlier on and get your prospects talking before you just throw up your pitch all over them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, speaking of opening lines, this next clip is from Steve Richard, and it's about how to open up a cold call when you call someone's mobile line. Let's check it out.
obviously people are calling mobiles. That's a big difference now. What's working for opening up on a mobile line? Do you just treat it like you used to with a desk phone, or do you do something different?
You do. You don't say it specifically. So, hey, Ryan, Steve, Exec Vision, how's it going? Good. Steve, this is my mobile number. Oh, geez, I'm sorry, Ryan. I didn't realize that's the number I had for you. You prefer I call you back at another time. And inevitably, this is what you're going to get. When you back off, it's like the tango. When you back off of them, they come towards you. So then they will say, what's this regarding? It happens almost every time. And then this is the key. At that point, don't pitch. If you pitch, you're dead. Your probability of being dead is like 90%. Instead, that's where you use your pre-call research. Actually, the reason I was getting in touch with you is I saw you and I are connected by way of Jonathan Mazza. Oh, yeah, I know him. Or, hey, I saw that video of you spitting rhymes on YouTube, and that's why I'm reaching out. You say something about them. And if it's nothing about them, maybe it's about the company. I saw a new product launch you've got going on, or I saw you're hiring for technical recruiters, which is why I'm in touch, or we're connected by way of this other person, or we have a client that looks a lot like you. But whatever it is, it's that connective tissue. And after that, your chances of getting their open intention, usually they go, oh, actually, that's fine. I'm just driving. What's going on? And then they listen.
Man, that's a great clip. Opening lines. Just open up with something you find about the prospect, make it about them.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with cold email, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like cold email, cold calling, when what Steve was there, like it's kind of funny, like with everybody working from, or the majority of people working from home nowadays, like there's still a lot of people that are really reluctant to call somebody's cell phone, and you shouldn't be. You should not be reluctant to call a cell phone. 9 out of 10 times, they're completely expecting it. As long as you open up with something totally relevant to them, or even, show some personality, they're going to be more prone to want to listen to the rest of the conversation.
If your boss is hearing this and saying, you can't call cell phones, that's not cool. Funny, do you check work email on your phone? Do you check your LinkedIn and your social media accounts and work on your phone? Yeah, that's what I thought.
All of the above.
Yeah. Speaking of, what happens when someone doesn't answer your phone call? That's kind of an interesting theme here. Let's dive into that. Prospecting with voicemail, talking with Shikha and Sarah again. Let's go there.
When cold calling personal cell phones, are you leaving voicemails? And if so, what are you saying in these voicemails? I know I never liked them, but I used to leave them. But what are you saying in your voicemails?
Let's start with Shikha on this one.
We get callbacks on voicemails. We are a big fan of them. I think voicemails are extremely important to leave, because I almost am the kind of person that if someone's cold calling me, I don't have time to pick up while I'm in a meeting, and I'm usually in meetings all day, and I'm looking for that voicemail because I want to know why I'm getting that call. And with our primarily focus being cold calling, we can't leave that channel out, even if it's not a fun thing to receive a voicemail. And a lot of people don't love getting them on their cell phones. We've actually noticed that we get callbacks. Even if it's someone saying, hey, I'm not the right person, reach out to so-and-so. It's still a callback for us, and it's still effective. So 100% big proponent of voicemails. For us, the shorter, the better. When I was in SDR, my voicemails would be very vague, like, hey, Shikha from Big Yard, give me a call back. Like the vaguest voicemails. And I've learned over time that some people love those and actually call back, and some people are like, no, like, why are you leaving me these vague voicemails like this? But I think the shorter the better. Adding a little bit of a tidbit of why you were calling and asking for that call back, or asking if this is the right person, or asking if they could help, goes a long way.
Where do you stand, Sarah, on the voicemail debate?
Yeah, I recently just changed the way that I go about like prospecting, because first of all, I hate writing emails. I hate them so much. So I cold call first, and then if they don't pick up, I say, hey Ryan, looks like I just missed you. I'm gonna go ahead and shoot you an email. It's gonna be titled "Just Left You a Voicemail." You can hit me back there or give me a call back here. Oh, by the way, this is Sarah from Gong. And then I leave that voicemail, and then I send "Just left you a voicemail," and I send the reason why I was calling, whatever I was gonna say on that phone call. And then I connect with them on LinkedIn. And then I might even say like, oh, by the way, I just left you a voicemail on your phone. This is adding a face to a voice on LinkedIn. And I have booked meetings off of that.
You know what that means, John Mazza? Voicemail is back.
Voicemail never really left. It's just more of an annoyance to actually have to leave a voicemail every time you call somebody, because how many times do you make phone calls during the day and somebody doesn't pick up? You got to make 30 to 100 voicemails a day. But they are kind of necessary, and they're incredibly helpful. When you're leaving like a short, straight to the point voicemail, or pointing them in another direction, like their mailbox or their LinkedIn DMs or whatever, that they're super helpful. So do them anyways, even if you hate them.
Think of them like billboards for your other activities. That's what it is. It's promoting your other activity. That's kind of what Sarah was saying there. All right. Here's a fun one for us. We talked to Lauren Bailey. We did a bunch of mock calls with her and then got feedback from different people. So people came in and called and talked to Lauren and tried to sell to her, and then she broke it down. We're going to talk about how to cold call a past customer. Let's go back into the past.
I love this clip.
Find out his perception. Because you're dealing with a past customer, your sale isn't about your typical sale. Your path to the meeting isn't, oh, well, that's interesting, instant conversion. He knows exactly what it does. What you're selling against here is his past perception of your product. So you did yourself a disservice by not asking about it, Joey. You got to find out, how did you use it, right? What did you think about it? Because the only way you're going to get a meeting is to show him what's changed, how he can use it differently, or what's improved, or some sort of free offer about how you are going to personally look at his current process versus what he did in the past and make suggestions. Otherwise, everything you were trying, you kept hitting the brick wall. And I think the name of that brick wall is, I already know how it works. Don't need the demo. I'm good. Right? So convince him he does by helping uncover how you could do it differently this time.
Yeah, I think one thing that we don't talk about enough is when you go and sell to a customer, especially companies and how much they change, you go back and say, hey, how different are you than you were 5 years ago? How different were you than you were 3 years ago? How different are you since COVID hit? Like, there's all these major changes that have happened at companies, and it causes a change. That's what's happening here. So it's a great point by Lauren. You need to take advantage of change that's happened in society and all these things, and bring that back up when you're doing a cold call. Anything to add, Maza?
Yeah, not every company or every SDR or every account executive has a fresh list of accounts that have never been worked before. So the more that you can do your research on to figure out why that company failed in the first place, or why that original deal failed in the first place, find that out. Get as much information on why they took the meeting in the first place too. What drew them to your company originally to take that first meeting and to buy your tool in the beginning. Find out all that information, and then talk about how you changed all at the same time.
I like this clip show. It's giving us an opportunity to add commentary that we couldn't add when we had the guest on. Let's jump into the next clip, which was this one was the same episode with Nick Liemandt and Lauren Bailey, and it's saying, hello, how are you? Let's dive into that.
We did have a question. Yes, it was from an anonymous attendee. Good question, though. Should you ask the prospect how they are once they pick up? Would a better alternative be to introduce yourself, provide credibility, and then ask them if now is a good time to chat? Let's hear your thoughts. I guess we'll start with Nick. Nick Liemandt, what do you say?
So one of the responses that I give my reps that they hate all the time is, it depends. So it depends on the rep's personality, because I think with most reps, if you ask how they're doing, it doesn't sound genuine. And then you've also, at that point, you're just like every other cold caller that they're getting, and they're using that time to come up with their excuse to get off the phone. But I have a couple reps who do it really effectively because they genuinely do care how that person is doing. And so it works for them. But generally, I would rather get right into the reason for the reason for the call, build credibility there, and then also acknowledge, hey, I know I caught you out of the blue. Here's the reason for my call. Can we continue, or is that relevant? And I think that goes a lot better as an opener than the how are you for most reps.
Nick talked about this here, and what actually happened, if you think about it, as a marketer, we have a thing Seth Godin talks about. If you're driving in a field and you see a purple cow, what do? You You stop. You take a picture of it. You share it online. You say, "Holy crap! Look at this purple cow! Oh my god!" Right? That's kind of what people do, right, Mazda? You look like you're.
I guess so. Yeah.
You're like, that's definitely what I sound like when I see a purple cow in the field. Oh my god! Anyway.
Oh my god.
I think I'm South Parking a little bit, but I don't know what I'm exactly doing there. Same thing with cold calling. You want to be the purple cow. You want to stand out so that your opener is different and unique, and the person gets it and says, this person doesn't usually do this. So that's kind of how I'd approach it a little bit. What do you think, Mazda?
I was always somebody that said, "How you doing?" Because it just came so naturally, and every time I tried to not say it, I would say it anyways. So it's like I couldn't keep myself from do it, so I just play into it. And what I used to do is, based on however they answered that question, "How are you?" or "How you doing?" is what I would say. Would change how I would approach the rest of the cold call. If they gave me like an energetic, "I'm amazing, I'm great, like what's going on, how you doing, like how you doing," then I'd be able to be a little bit more myself. If they gave me a grumpy, like "what the hell do you want?" then it changed my attitude and I went through the call differently. So
you're calling like Harrison Ford, "What the hell do you want?"
Well, you never know. Some of these people that you're calling are pretty extraordinary people, like CIOs at Cisco. I used to have to call every once in a while. It's like companies like that, and you're trying to talk to those people. They could be Harrison Ford, and you never even know.
That's right.
Or they could hang out with Harrison Ford.
This next clip is from our friend Justin Michael. He's talking about sending images in your email.
Justin, we also have a question in chat too, which I'm sure a lot of people are concerned, especially when it comes to sending images and emails. You had mentioned that you're doing it around the third email. Like, are you seeing much higher, rates of those emails actually being opened and viewed by people, or are they, a lot of them not actually making it into their inboxes?
So I've used an application called getcloudapp.com or giazzo.com that they're image converters into GIFs, and they compress down under 100 kilobytes. So typically, if you think like a product marketer, you're trying to get people to this meeting where they're going to see a slide deck or a demo of something moving on the screen. And so there's usually a wow moment in a deck, or there's an aha moment in the demo, because a lot of these product-led growth companies, where you're not feature selling, but it's really a wow factor because it's highly technical. If you can then turn that into an 8-second GIF and nest it on touch 3. Touch 1 opens the spam aperture, touch 2 verifies it, touch 3, you're ready to send an image. So as long as it's small enough and you're careful about where you put the pictures, it's okay. Mm-hmm. And that's why no one ever did it before, really, except a company called Dogpatch Advisors, which is a really cool advisory that met with them in San Francisco, and they're going really crazy with this. They're scraping and writing code and making completely like 200 emails where every single email pulls from different websites and it is coded. Josh Brown deserves credit for turning images into websites and then nesting the websites inside the emails. There's still a risk with links. So I actually just used static PNGs right in line. And if, the majority of sequences I see, they linked out to a PDF, a white paper. I don't do that. I go read the white paper. I pick the number one insight and either put a picture or put what it is. I keep people inside the sequence. They never bounce off. That's the key. And then I do clusters. So day 1, 2, 3, wait 48 hours, day 1, 2, 3. So I'm going through what's normally a 30-day sequence in 15 days. And then there's imagery. And then I'm also leaving voicemails to spike the sequence. What Ryan just said is a bit of a paradox, because if you're short enough, there's enough social proof per vertical. I am the first person in world history to say relevance at scale, not personalization at scale. Obviously, I'm the son of a linguist, so it's the same word. There's personalization, relevance, and timing, and personalization and relevance are the same thing. It's like a Russian nesting doll, like a matryoshka. Like, it's the same. Like, relevance is the work pain. Like, I can be like, Ryan O'Hara, I love your corgis, I love your guitar, let's hang out. You're like, come over to Facebook. I have still not told Ryan how I will help him at his job, or making LeadIQ better, or helping him with a work problem. So I try to get young reps to move away from the gimmicks, like, connection common, look at your awards. Also, if you're like really research someone a lot, there's like a kind of dating principle to this. It's like, you go on the date, you're like, oh, hey, I know that you really love Harry Styles. I went to eBay, I paid $367 for the first record he ever has signed, here you go. That's what we do, is we take C-levels and we just fawn all over them, and we kill the power dynamics and the equal business stature, hat tip Sandler there. So I really teach a principled disinterest where it's very consultative and the messaging is not kind of needy or over researched. So those are some tips that are, I think, nowhere in the industry.
Great. Who doesn't love Harry Styles too?
It's catchy. I'll be honest. I can't turn that station off. It comes on the radio, you know, just cry my eyes out. Dumb and Dumber.
I remember many years ago, we had Stu Heinecke on the first episode of B2B Tonight, and Stu told the story about this guy named Dan Walschmidt, who I've actually met before too. Really nice guy down in South Carolina. Dan sent out swords to prospects. He had the guy from Gladiator make custom swords for like 300 of CEOs that are Fortune 500 companies. And he heard back from every single one of them but one. Because it's cool. You get sent a sword and you're like, holy crap.
Pretty amazing.
But yeah, he talked about like cutting through and having success and stuff. And speaking of cutting through, my video doing some cuts right there. You're like, that's a remix.
I love it.
But yeah, you can do some stuff that's relevant. If you're going to do things with images, make sure they're relevant and make it part of the equation.
I think taken from what Justin was saying there, I had a ton of success in writing emails and putting images in my emails. More than half of the meetings that I got with my emails would have an image in the emails, and he did say something about make relevance over personalization. I can agree with that, and I can disagree with that at the same time because it really depends on the situation. But if you can combine the two, personalization with relevance, then it's almost impossible for you to not get a response on that email or that cold call. Like if you're able to combine the two, like a positive response or a positive from the person that you're reaching out to. If you can get those two, do it.
All right, so this next clip, we're going to dive into how to get good, relevant, fun subject lines. We're going to talk with Jack Wilson. Let's see what happened. You'll see these blog posts that people put out about tips for writing great subjects and stuff. If it's in a blog post, it's probably been done already by hundreds of reps, so it's not going to work anymore. The thing that I've seen that's kind of held the testament of time since I was writing cold emails in 2007, 2008 for me is you want to make it, whatever your personalization angle is, you want to make the subject line match that personalization angle. You want it to be vague enough to draw curiosity to open the email, but related to the body of the email. So you don't want to go and say your kid's sick at the hospital. That would get 100% open rate, but you'd piss off the prospect. So instead, make sure the context lines up. So if I wrote Roderick email trying to sell to him, and I wrote, hey, I saw your book. I just ordered it on Amazon. My subject might just be your book. Roderick's definitely going to open that email, and you're not going to be mad if you read the email and see the first sentence is, hey, Roderick, I just ordered your book on Amazon. I'm excited to read it. Wanted to ask you about how your team's XYZ, right? At least I'm relating the subject line to be about the prospect when you do that. So that's kind of an easy way to do that as you're going through your cycle of what you should do for personalization.
Yeah, dude. And Ryan,
great point.
Add to that too. Don't be afraid to have fun with the personal stuff, and fun has to be relevant. So you have to find a way to make your fun, quippy contact also be relevant. But I've seen on the enterprise stage, I've got a really fantastic BDR that works with me. And he did some homework and found that one of our prospects had a YouTube channel for her dog Newman. And Ryan, I know this would work on you.
Yeah, I'm in already.
So he sent an email and the subject line was why Newman would love Seismic, and Newman's her dog. So she's like, all right, this is funny, I'll read it. But what he did in the body, and this is not everyone is great at this, he actually made the funny line somehow relate back to why Seismic would make Newman's life better if Newman happened to be someone who needed a sales enablement platform, right? So he did a good job of making it relevant, but also fun and grabbing your attention. It works on every level of sales because guess what? We're all just people. Even the most successful CEO of the biggest company you know goes home and does weird stuff or is into dorky, nerdy things, right? We're all just people. So don't leave that aspect out when you're prospecting and having fun.
Mazza, do you remember when I hired you and we were training you on prospecting? What I said about CEOs and everybody?
Yeah, basically what Jack just said, how they're all nerdy, goofy, probably weird people.
Yeah, they've got some people locked in their basements, guys. That's how they're getting into this.
I don't know if I go that far.
Yeah, that's probably too far, but you know what I'm saying.
I guess so.
People are people. It doesn't matter what position they're in. Maybe they like flickering as a late night DJ with video, like I am right now. It's pretty cool, right? All right, this next clip is about prospecting when someone engages with your content. It's from Tom Boston in Sales Loft. Let's see what he said.
As you're going through the process and trying to understand how to prospect and be better, you put out a lot of content online. You've got people that are following you. You obviously have to stay focused on your goals. So what are you doing when you actually interact and prospect those people? How do you take someone that's engaged with your content and prospect them afterward without being too pushy?
Yeah, so I think I made that mistake very, very early on of jumping on the engagement, right? So someone's liked my video and their job title is someone who I would prospect, and I would email them and I would send them a message on LinkedIn as if they've opened the door, right? and I think that that's where I fell down, and again it's a learning curve, right? It's about and it's kind of sounds a little bit counterproductive to say it, but for me it's about not selling to the people who are engaging with the content, right? Don't get me wrong. If one of my target accounts is liking every single thing that I post, then that's a different story, right? Maybe I'll add them to a cadence, and I'll start to do my my kind of approach, right, and hope that gets me the meeting. But I think what a lot of people do is if they make content, they will just go down the list of who's liked it and try to sell to every single person, and that's probably about the worst thing that you can do. I think my content has become something you can interact with, and of course I'll comment back and we'll probably have a bit of a laugh along the way, but you kind of know that I'm not going to kind of hard sell you Sales Loft in the LinkedIn DMs because actually that's not my ultimate goal of doing kind of what I'm doing.
Yes, love is in the air when you get an engagement on LinkedIn, isn't it, Mazza? It's emotional. Luckily, when we talk, we know to hit the unmute button, right, Mazza? Because you're a grown man that has been doing videos and webinars for years.
Yes, most definitely. And love is in the air. Love is always in the air. But
really,
stay
really
away from the pitch, like on LinkedIn in general. Like, please stay away from it. People are gonna hate you if they're liking your content. They're gonna unfollow you. They're gonna stop following your content. And you're not gonna get that name recognition.
Here's the thing: if you use LinkedIn and get an engagement there, use LeadIQ and then call and email them and reference the thing that they liked, and you're prospecting there because that's expected.
Shameless plug.
I don't care. Who cares? I have shame. I live in my mom's house.
Shouldn't.
Ma, I'm recording. All right. This next clip is about finding your purpose with Nikki Ivey. Really good clip. Let's jump in and look at it.
We should maybe talk about this. You're listening as a rep. How do you find your purpose, Nikki? How did you figure out what you wanted to do? Is it accidental, or did you investigate and sit there? Because you want to sell with a purpose. In fact, that's a new book we're all going to write together. Selling with purpose.
How did I find my purpose? I think failure has been very instructive to me over my career. It took some time for me to be able to see that as instructive, first of all. Also, I'll be more specific. I took a job where I was selling into construction subcontractors. So literally people out there roofing. I was calling people, they were on their roofs, they didn't care. And the more I was myself, the more they seemed maybe not off-put by it, but I think it just wasn't a match. It wasn't a match. But when you're in a sales career surrounded by other salespeople for whom it is a match, or for whom it seems to be irrelevant whether or not it's a match, and you start to comparing yourself, you either conclude you suck at sales and you should just leave, or that there has to be I know I'm good at this. What are the variables? Mm-hmm. And in some cases, the variable is the product. In some cases, the variable is the culture or the base, the buyer base that you sell into. So I failed at trying to sell to construction workers. And once I recovered from that failure, that's when I was able to go back and find the lessons. And so in addition to that lesson, right, which is that part has to be a fit. And then of course, obvious things like culture and leadership. Besides that, it really was, and this was something that Dan Gottlieb said to me right after I lost my job due to COVID the beginning of last year. He was like, stop thinking about the title, stop even thinking about the outcome, and like be able to answer the question, what do I want to be doing with my day? Do I want to be talking to people, starting conversations? Or do I want to be helping people understand a solution? Or do I want to be helping people, you know, understand how to use the solution once they're onboarded? Like, it's totally okay to pick any one of those things. It doesn't have to, like, we don't have to all be sharks. We don't have to all be our favorite LinkedIn sales guru. We don't. And I think once I figured that stuff out, then everything else was just like, I mean, okay, I'm a winner, I'm gonna lose, but I'm gonna be me.
So don't forget why you sell. That's kind of the big takeaway from that clip. Don't forget why you're doing this. You're doing this to help people. You're doing something to start conversations because you like talking to interesting people. You're doing it because you secretly want to take over the world and you want to learn different data points and infiltrate companies secretly so that you can overtake and run the world someday. What? Well, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not trying to do that. What, guys? Jeez.
I just listened to that clip just for like, because it makes me feel good inside. Like, it makes me, if I'm having a rough time, if I'm like, what the hell do I want to do next? Like, what am I going to be doing next? I like to listen to that clip. Thanks, Nikki.
Yeah, Nikki's really a helpful person to follow in the sales community. Speaking of community, whoa. This next clip is from Jared Robin. It's about building communities to help you close deals and generate pipeline.
Wow.
So one thing that's really important, I think that people don't realize that we're trying to tell you is like anyone can do it, right, Jared? Like if you're selling into a different space, there's totally a need for a community in all these different spaces, right?
Yeah, and you know, it's funny. I was talking before this call about community that may not exist in brand with a potential company that we might partner with. They wanted to launch their own community. There's tons of communities out there, some of which you realize and you're a part of, some of which you need to search out for. But how we look at community and our values align with that. The first value is community is family. And I think that's a big differentiator what we're doing. And whenever I talk to people that are building communities, I throw that, you know, onto their plate as well. Having everybody's back is important. Like from a community standpoint, you could go to Reddit, you could go to Facebook groups, and there's definitely some of that camaraderie. In general, micro communities, smaller communities away from the beaten path exist for so many things, and you should search them out.
So you've built these communities up. You have a lot of people that have joined Rev Genius. How the hell did you do it? Like, how many members do you guys have? How'd you get so many people to sign up in such a short amount of time? And they're obviously getting a ton of value. I've heard nothing but good things about the community, but you have to start from zero. How'd you guys build it?
You know, it's funny. Galen used to call me like a machine because that was like an old nickname I had because I really went out and you know, without giving too much of the secret sauce, you know, it's funny and interesting when you're building a community, everybody's like, oh, you're at 11,000, all of this. You have to realize it starts with one. Bringing on one person. That could be a friend. That could be a new friend. That could be somebody that you met you know, in chat, in a webinar, et cetera. And then just start expanding your network. When you build it one at a time, it feels like a daunting task, but that's how you truly build a community. You're not supposed to scale super fast. We all want to, but community is kind of the antithesis of that. You can scale an email list, but can you scale that 120? not before building a really good foundation. You know, I have spoken to a majority of people in our community, even if it was like a one-liner, which is pretty crazy and cool.
So if you want to build a community, here's a little tip for you. When you get off a call with somebody, say, hey, I know this person. You guys should talk. You have a lot of similar problems together that you might be able to scheme up together. Do you want me to put you two in touch? That's an easy way to build community if you're an AE or an SDR. Think about pairing people up, being a matchmaker a little bit. You know what I mean? Look at Mazza. He's kind of a matchmaker, right?
Yeah. I mean, I matched all these guests up with us and especially you, so we could speak. And so we could show all these clips to our guests.
So this next clip is, we're going to get into a little bit of some stuff about closing. So if you want to be an AE someday, or you are an AE and you want to learn a little bit, hang out for these ones. These are good. We're going to talk about the discovery process with Rich Stone from Tech Target. Let's talk to Rich Stone. Let's see what he said. Rich, what's the discovery process like at Tech Target?
Yeah, so we have a very detailed set of ideal questions that we can gather information on a discovery call. And when we go through the discovery process, it's important to gather those things so you can navigate the sales process, as Andy said, effectively based off of the information you gather from that discovery. Now, the discovery isn't going to be the first call, you're asking 21 questions right out of the gate, you're checking a box and you're just, hey, what's your CRM? What's your marketing automation platform? What's your sales cadence? Like, we're not doing that. It's kind of like, we need to gather this information. And I like to coach our teams to be candid, and when they're discovering this information, and that let them know why we're doing it, right? We are gathering this information so that we can have a more productive conversation, and so that we can have a mutually beneficial outcome to this call and get that next call scheduled to go over a more detailed demo that's going to be pertinent to your specific environment, right? So that's something that's, I think, super important. So we literally have an actual checklist of good questions to ask, and more so specific answers that you're going to be looking for. So I think every team should have a very detailed discovery process, and like a wish list of things you can gather on that discovery call. But also, discovery doesn't stop at the initial call. Like, it's going to throughout the whole sales process, depending on how complex your sales cycle is. But these are things that you can continue to gather. And if we're talking about SaaS, when you're the rep and you're handing things over to the customer success organization after they've signed on for a subscription, like, you want to have these information points so that you can help with customer retention, usage, and then upsell renewal moving forward, to help have that relationship really be fostered and, ultimately not be that one deal, right? You want to grow the partnership. And so I think that discovery is something that will never stop and should never stop throughout the process.
Similar to my mouth moving, discovery never stops. I think another thing that can help with discovery too is ask open-ended questions. Don't just ask assumptive things, because if you're like, does that sound right? What do you think? That's like an empty question. Ask something else that gives them more feedback and allows them to say more. If you do that, you'll be a good interviewer. And if you're a good interviewer, you're good at discovery. I think that's kind of my tip for that. Any tips for you, Mazza?
Yeah, I mean, it's the most important part of the sales process is the discovery. And like Rich said, it'll help with customer retention. It'll help, once they're already a customer, if you want them to re-sign down the road, like, it's just the most important part. So get them to say as much as possible.
Speaking of saying as much as possible, no, I'm just stretching the transitions now. This is getting bad.
It didn't work.
I tried. I'm just trying to impress you people. We have a cool clip that we picked out where we talk about what similar companies do, featuring Josh Norman and Scott Leese. Let's check it out.
So you have a product-led company. What are some tips that you can give to an account executive working that company that you see is already signed up for self-serve? How do you keep that person intrigued in the product, using the product? Like, what are some things that you can do that your product necessarily can't do?
I think you can tell them about what other people that look like them are doing with it. People love hearing about, how does somebody else gain value from this, particularly somebody in my sector, a direct competitor of mine. Customers always want to know, how does somebody else have an edge on them that I need to know about, that I can sort of try to gain back. And so, telling people about how others are benefiting, I think is because it's sort of like benchmarking. You're telling the customer where they are along a maturity curve in a particular area. So I love that trick as one tactic.
Yeah, and it's the story that you tell around that as well, right? So it's very different to say, hey, Ryan and John started a podcast, and you might want to start a podcast too, versus saying, hey, Ryan and John started a podcast. They're up to 100,000 downloads. They have 5 sponsors, and this podcast that started off as a joke now has a $250,000 annual revenue number. That's a very different conversation in the power of those particular words and those stories.
Yeah, so I think the general summary here is tell stories. You know what I mean? You gotta tell stories about everything. When you have customer successes, tell that. You want to prove to people things by going through stories, not just saying, oh, hey, trust me, I'm a rep. Parentheses, please give me a commission check.
And you know what's funny? Speaking of telling stories, Doug Landis, the chief storyteller, former chief storyteller over at Salesforce, right? Is for our next clip is talking about worked with versus learned from. Doug Landis.
Doug, do you ever talk to like Andy Raskin about like narrative science stuff? You ever talk to that guy?
Yeah, no, so Andy and I haven't had deep conversations, but yeah, like look, narrative science is like, it's the psychology of human beings, the psychology of storytelling, and there's like storytelling with data, and like I get it. By the way, no offense to Andy, I love you, Andy, but like the greatest sales deck that was ever made is actual total horseshit. Don't follow that model.
Wait, Doug, hold on. Now we need to know what is the greatest sales deck ever made, or what should you do in it?
Oh man. Yeah, just baiting me. Look, I mean, here's the thing. At the end of the day, nobody has real credibility unless you're the founder and CEO of the company, right? And so what we need to do is we need to demonstrate some level of understanding and credibility based on what we have learned about people just like you. So if I'm actually going to go talk to Justin, I know he's got this like methodical process about prospecting. By the way, I grew up with Aaron Ross. And so, you know what, Justin, I might even say, this whole notion of predictable revenue, by the way, Aaron Ross, you cannot fucking take credit for that. You didn't start it. It started at Oracle because I was an SDR at fucking Oracle before he got to Salesforce. So let's just talk about that. Like let's just have a really interesting conversation about what I know and what I've learned from my experience about working with Aaron Ross, about working with Josh Braun, about working with John Barrows, who's one of my closest friends. Like this is just what I know and what I've understand and what I've learned. These are people that I've learned from, right? And so like the greatest sales deck is like you got to earn the right to start talking about yourself. In order to earn the right to start talking about yourself, you got to demonstrate who you've learned from, what you've learned, and what you can tell, what you can share with me about my potential world that I've never even considered myself.
So I'll give a parallel for people listening so you have a takeaway too. Like Justin, for you, for example, I remember when you were first talking to me about like what you're coming up with for a framework and stuff. One of the things you talked about is like the years of selling you've done and all the different things you've read and like thousands of sales books and like having some sort of credibility like that. Doug, you're saying basically that in order to earn that story, you have to establish your ethos, right?
You've got to share. So here's the thing, like I'll give you an example. The logo slide that everybody likes to show up. Well, look at how fucking great I am. Look at all the people that we work with and then we partner with. Good for you. Congratulations. It's all about fucking you. I don't care. You come to sell to me. I don't care about that stuff because right now you have sales in your title. Honestly, that's it. And so what I want to know is who have you learned from? So if you're gonna show me a logo slide, use that logo slide and say, this is who we've learned from. You notice, talk about Justin, you want to talk about linguistics? It's partnered with, worked with doesn't mean learned from. So say learn from, use the words and then guess what? My next question is, what'd you learn?
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, now we're in a conversation. And by the way, now you can share things with me that I may not even be aware of. And now all of a sudden you're educating me and you're building more credibility. And I know what people buy from whom? People we like, people we trust. How do you build trust? Demonstrate that you get me. Demonstrate that you've actually done your homework. Demonstrate that you put yourself in my shoes, right? And so if you can start to share some of the things that you've learned from other companies that are just like me, all of a sudden I'm like, awesome, I want to know more.
I can't add anything to that. Oh my God.
I know. I was thinking the
love
same
Doug.
thing.
I'm just like, I can't say anything better. He wrapped that up better than I could. Anything I say is just going to take away from his lesson. Hey guys, we've learned from Doug Landis.
Yes, we've learned from Doug Landis and Justin Michael. That was a lot of energy on that show right there. That was an awesome, fun show.
Speaking of, every time I'm just trying to force the cool transition.
No, all right.
In this
you
case,
killed it.
Yeah, I know. This next clip is from Roderick Jefferson, who talks about the most important part of the buyer's journey. Let's listen in. What do you think is the most important part of the buying journey? Like, how do you get something rolling on this?
Well, I think to me, it's always been about asking the right questions and starting with the buyer's journey. The problem that I've seen over the years is companies start to at their sales process, their sales stages, their sales methodologies, let's call it selling motions. And they never really go up to the buyer's journey. They try and shoehorn the buyer into their processes. Well, the whole world of sales has shifted, as we know. And if you don't start at the buyer's journey, you won't understand what's actually in this from a couple of perspectives. One, we do the standard questions of, what's the compelling event? What's the pain? We can help find the solution. But the problem that I'm realizing over and over and listening to sales folks is they leave out the most important question of all. And that is, so Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, what will this mean for you personally? Will it get you a larger seat at the table? Will it get you your name up in lights? Will it get you out of the doghouse? You leave that out and you're only getting a portion of the overall view, right? So don't leave out the personal piece, especially right now. There's never been a time where selling has been more personalized than we're doing today.
I love what you're saying because it's completely true, especially in the sales space where we're in. Not to be a jerk, but we are an individualistic society today. It's happened way more. You care a lot more about looking good and being and than your company in a lot of ways. I think there's usually maybe only a handful of people at companies that are actually company people that care more about the company than themselves. And you're telling me that the buyers that you're selling to are wired the same way, right?
Yeah, but it's not just caring about themselves. It's ultimately, let's go back to the purpose of sales, and that is to find a solution to the problem or find a solution to their pain. With that in mind, you've got to look at it both from the personal perspective and the company perspective. I don't know that it's so much about, I care about me. It's more of, I also have a personal interest and a personal vesting in this moving forward. And if by product, it'll help me move forward, fantastic.
You know what's really funny is in that clip, I cleared my throat on the mic and I cleared my throat in real life at the same exact time. So I was like, whoa, wait, is my mic coming in? Great clip from Roderick. I think you need to be thinking about what the person's going through and have empathy as you're selling and going through that whole process. Mazza, it seems like you're stalling here. Why are you stalling?
I don't know why I'm stalling, but I was just thinking back of the buyer's journey where a lot of sales reps get stuck in the buyer's journey is because they don't ask questions looking for they ask questions looking for a very specific answer instead of asking questions to uncover the true pain that the prospect's actually going through.
Oh, I thought for a minute there the reason you're stalling is because we're going to show you a clip of asking this 1,000-year-old question in the old sales relics. Is a stalled deal really a deal? This is with Scott Leese and Josh Norman. Let's find out. Let's say someone on your teams are working a bunch of accounts. They've got opportunities they've created, but they've just had deals that have been stalling for a couple months. Are they really deals, or are there some things you can do to coach them?
We use the word deals right there. A deal didn't stall. A conversation stalled. An opportunity stalled. Right? So yeah, you said there, like, well, is it really a deal? No, it's not a deal. Take that shit off the verbal board. Okay? It's not a deal. We have a conversation that stalled. We have an opportunity that stalled. And can they be resurrected? Of course they can be resurrected, and they should be resurrected. And then it just gets into the when and the how and all that kind of stuff, right? So go ahead, Josh. Sorry.
No, I totally agree. To me, one of the funnest things I ever get to do is like when a deal has been in the pipeline or an opportunity has been in the pipeline for a year, I get to stand up at a forecast meeting and say, like, who wants to send that customer a birthday cake for our 1 year of being an opportunity together? And so, yeah, look, in my experience, when things stall, it comes back to what I mentioned earlier. It's almost always because we just don't know the need, right? If there's a true need, if you qualify for need, then usually it's not that hard to qualify the rest of the process. I think reps go out of order a lot, right? And so it's like, I'm not sure if there's need. There seems to be interest, but I don't know if there's a concrete need with business value and outcomes. But I'm going to do a demo because maybe they want to see the product. And I'm going to introduce a sales engineer, and I'm going to even show them pricing. And so you're doing all these things. Then you look in Salesforce and you're like, wow, you're in the pricing stage. That's 75% close rate for us. But you never identified need. So it's sort of like, you do not pass go directly to jail. It's like, and that is the vast majority of time when conversations stall, it's because the sales rep is going out of order. I see it all the time when deals push at the end of the quarter, like we're in contract, customers committed to signing the last day. And then it's like, oh, just kidding, additional technical due diligence required. Well, why didn't we know that? We didn't ask the right questions. We went out of order. We thought we were at contract. The customer thinks we're at technical due diligence. It's almost always, going out of order. You've got to just go back. And so and need's the first step. So if you don't know the need, nothing downstream matters if you've gotten that step wrong.
I remember seeing at the Sales Success Summit many years ago, conference Scott Ingram puts on, I saw guys from Seismic talking about, I think it was Jack Wilson actually, mutual action plans. Or David Weiss actually was the one that was talking about it, but they both were talking. Mutual action plans are one of the easiest ways to keep a deal moving forward, not having it stall, and getting all the red flags that might come up in a deal early. Check those out. Google one, look it up, use the internet, DuckDuckGo it. I don't care what search engine you use, but it's a good tip. It's such a good tip that my lights are turning on and off, right, Mazza?
Yeah, as are mine.
Stop trying to show off with your cool video off, video on feature, you jerk. This next clip is about sales process causing sales issues from Andy Paul. Let's take a listen. Do you guys think at the core of every problem of a sales team, it's because of motivation, or could it be other stuff too? Like, what are some other things that you see that have been dysfunctional over the years that you guys have been able to fix?
Poor process. I mean, for me, if we're doing one loss deal review, I go back to discovery. I can uncover most of the problems that end up in a no decision, specifically a no decision, but also a lost deal back at discovery. So oftentimes it's just going back and looking at what are people doing in that process. I mean, now we have the benefit of technology, be able to listen to discovery calls and be able to analyze them. But even before that is, sitting in on calls or doing ride-alongs, whatever, is, what happens is there's a tendency, and I've found, is that especially it's become a little more pronounced now too, is we have playbooks, we've got lists of questions that typically we ask people to ask, and people are good at gathering information, but they're not terribly good at understanding that information, understanding the context and why that's important to the buyer, what it means in terms of what their desired outcomes are. And I find that's a big hole. So I tend to look starting with discovery because I find a lot of problems there.
It seems like discovery is like the central part of selling effectively and dealing with closing, right, Mazza?
Exactly what I was thinking. It's like a theme going on. Everybody's talking about the importance of discovery, how important discovery is, questions you need to answer, what you need to listen to.
It sounds like we're trying to plug the credit card company, but we're not. All right. So we're talking about discovery and sales, not discovery credit cards.
It's Discover, but so it's okay. It's okay. We got you.
This last clip is a real doozy, everyone. You close the customer, you get them on board. We talked with Patrick Campbell from Profitwell about avoiding churn with the right product. This is our last one of the year. Let's take a look and see. This is the last one for this wrap up. Let's take a look. If someone's buying the wrong package, is that one of the reasons people churn?
Yeah, all the time. And this is where it's my favorite topic ever, the pricing metric or value metric. And, LeadIQ, you guys have a great one. It's really how you charge, right? And this is where, like, the easiest thing, Steve, for this particular example is right now everyone gets 100 what's-its or widgets, whatever the package is right now. Make that new 60% less or 40% less package, make it, half or whatever it ends up being for the amount of usage there is. And the reason for this is that when you price on a value metric, you make sure that you're not charging Disney the same price as you're charging a small startup. It's kind of back in that econ class where, you know, your professor said a price point on the demand curve and said, oh, this is the revenue. Well, with a value metric, you essentially have infinite price points for your product. And it allows people to always get what they're actually paying for and not have a situation where a lot of people have had with old school software where they're sitting there and they go, oh, I'm only using 30% of the features I have. Like, why am I paying so much when I'm only using 30% of the product? It avoids that situation, and more pricing is moving in the value metric direction. And to give you some actual numbers, revenue churn is typically half when you're using a value metric based pricing versus feature differentiated. Expansion revenue is typically double because people, it's not a sales conversation. It's, hey, you're using 100 now, and yesterday you were using 90. Congratulations, that's awesome. You must be getting a ton of value. We're just going to bump you up to the next tier, rather than, hey, do you want this new feature? Like, I want to get you on the next plan, and there's this really cool feature you should be using, which is just an entirely new sales conversation. So yeah, that's in terms of packaging the thing that I would really harp on, because it bakes growth into how you make money, and it also helps with that retention because people are only paying for essentially what they're using, but also like where they're actually getting the value.
Yeah, one thing you always hear is that people buy products and services and stuff, and they only end up using only like 10 or 20% of all the features anyway. So I think that's a good lesson from Patrick. You got to sell people the right product in the first place. You got to sell the right solution, and you want to teach people and inspire them with different ways to use the products and purchase the right services, whatever you're selling, and pairing those things up so they're doing the right things.
Yeah, you can't sell them on your features. You have to sell them on the value that you can bring to the table, and that's the most important thing.
The worst excuse that you could have for using a product or service is because your boss told you had to.
Yeah, exactly.
So think of it from that perspective. Get those individual contributors in and using the product and loving whatever you're selling, and then work your way up. So Mazza, that's a wrap on the clips for this year. Those are our favorite clips from 2021. I can't believe we did a whole year of B2B Tonight for season 2. We're getting better every season gradually. This upcoming season, we're going to actually be working on trying to build out a studio and maybe do this in person together. Is that a possibility?
I hope it's a possibility. I hope it's a definite. But I think one thing that we need to talk about is the many styles of John and Ryan, the hairstyles, the outfit choices. I think we should bring more of that. You and the sweater vest.
Couple of those.
You got like one in each color.
Couple of those clips you could see when we didn't have vaccines yet and when we did for haircuts.
I mean, my hair's a little crazier now than it was back then. I got more haircuts back then.
Well, that's pretty much it for now. If you're listening to this, LeadIQ, subscribe to our feed. We're going to have more stuff coming through. Subscribe to our podcast feed, the Prospecting Podcast, soundcloud.com/LeadIQ if you want to find it. If you want to use our product and use 15 free credits every week, sign up. You can do that and send it in. It'll save you a ton of time. There literally was a team last week that we talked to that said they were saving 120 steps per account they were trying to prospect and do. I don't want to disclose the information, but let's just say that it's a company that rhymes. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. But thank you, everyone. We appreciate it, and we appreciate the feedback. Thank you to our producer, Nick, who allows us to do cool things like blink our video accidentally, but also sets up a lot of the cool production, made the intro. You didn't make us. We made you. Anyway.
I think he said he hates you.
No, he said, I made you. I think he whispered that in my ear. I don't know, but
he whispered something different in my ear.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Well, thank you, everyone that's out there actually still listening. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.